Well, hello everyone, and welcome to our Chapter 3 lecture. The focus is on doing business in a global market. So, you ready? Let's go. We will focus on the dynamics of a global market, why trade with other nations, getting involved in global trade, strategies for reaching global markets, forces that affect trade in global markets, trade, protectionism, and the future of global trade. So perhaps you said, why would a company want to trade in the global market? I got an answer for you. There are 7.7 billion people in the world, meaning there's a potential of 7.7 billion customers when you decide to deal in a global economy. What is importing? Import is when one country buys products from another country. Export is selling products to another country. So we'll talk about importing and exporting as it relates to the United States of America. Now, it may not be what the rest of the world calls football. However, American football is attracting an audience outside the United States. So football has been played in London and in other countries, and the ideal is to make football a more global sport. Here we have a graph showing the world population. Now, perhaps we feel that North America is the largest, but as you can see, that's not true by far. Asia is the largest continent at 59.6% of the world population. Africa comes in second, about 17.2%. Europe, 19.6%. And we see that North America makes up about 4.7% of the world population. Right now, as we mentioned, in our current year, about 7.7 billion people are in the world. It is estimated that by 2050, it's going to grow to almost 9.3 billion. That's a lot of people. Pleasure doing business. This graph, according to your textbook authors, shows the best countries for business. You see United Kingdom, Sweden, Hong Kong, Canada, etc. Who you don't see is United States. According to this graph, we did not make the top 10 as the best country to do business with. But what we did make is the country that has the most billionaires. All right. So United States has over 700 billionaires, which is almost more than the other top 5 or 6 countries combined. So yes, the United States has the most billionaires in the world. Okay? Why trade with other nations? Well, it comes down to resource and products. We're saying what resources do we have an abundance of in our country? Whether those resources are natural resources or they could be technological. So like in Venezuela, they're known for having an abundance of natural resources, whereas in Japan, they're known for having an abundance of technological resources. So if you have these resources, why not trade them with other countries to earn a living? So global trading allows countries to produce what they make best and buy what they need from others. So we're saying is that we're going to make those products in the United States that we make best, and we'll buy from other countries products that we need that perhaps not our strong suit. Okay? So with free trade, that's when you have the movement of goods and services among nations without political or economic barriers. So companies are able to trade with other companies outside the United States If it's strictly free trade, it means there's not any interference with from a political standpoint. But we'll talk about there can be some barriers to free trading. All right. I won't go through all of these, but this lists some of the pros and cons of free trade. So once again, a pro is that you have about 7.7 billion potential customers when you're trading globally. You can produce those goods in which you have a comparative advantage. So again, if you're in Japan and you have those technological resources, then you may be better at making more of those technology products than some of the other countries. Now, some of the cons or disadvantages is that domestic workers can lose their jobs due to increased imports or production shifts to low wage global markets. Now, that's key because a lot of the products of US based companies are made overseas because they are in low wage markets where those products can be made, but those companies are paying a cheaper labor cost. There are two different advantages. We'll talk about the comparative advantage and the absolute advantage. When there's comparative advantage, simply means that a country should sell to other countries those products that it produces most efficiently and buy from other countries those products that it cannot produce as effectively or efficiently. Sometimes it's just because of the natural resources and where they actually grow that will give a country a comparative advantage. With an absolute advantage, that means a country has a monopoly on producing a specific product or is able to produce it more efficiently than all other countries. Do a little research, we'll talk about it a little bit later. Is there a country that you know of that has an absolute advantage on a specific product? If so, send me that information in the form of an email. Okay? And we'll talk about it. So we talked in chapter 2 about the national debt. Now we're saying what countries does the United States owe the money to? From this graph shows that a good portion of our debt is owed to Japan, a good portion is owed to China. Other countries we owe money to consist of Ireland, Brazil, United Kingdom. Now, this graph is showing our debt. However, I do want to make you aware that there are other countries that owe money to the United States of America as well. Okay? So let's talk about importing goods and services. So products that are widely available in one country may be unavailable in another. So we're saying what products can we produce in our country that are not as widely available in another country? And if so, we're going to import those goods. By working with producers in their native country, people can become major importers. So we again, you're focused on what products can we actually produce in our own country that may not be as available in other countries. Now let's talk about exporting goods and services. So exporting refers to selling goods. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. So selling abroad sometimes may be easier due to less competition. So what we're saying here is that rather than sell our product to the United States, we may decide to sell those products in the global market because we may have less competitors overseas, if you will, than compared to here in the United States. Now let's talk about exporting. Exporting does provide a boost to the U.S. economy. So exporting means that we are selling goods and services to other countries. Exporting generates about 7,000 jobs each year. Export represents about 12% of the U.S. gross domestic product, and it accounts for about 11.5 million jobs. So there's a lot of products exported from the United States to other countries. Okay? Now, how do we measure the balance of trade when you're talking about exporting or importing? Well, you could have a trade surplus or there could be a trade deficit. With a trade surplus, it means the value of the country's exports exceed that of its imports. So that means that we're selling more goods to other countries than what we're purchasing from other countries. When that takes place, you have a trade surplus, which is favorable. The opposite, a trade deficit, is when the value of a country's imports, goods that we're buying, exceeds the exports, then we're buying more than what we're selling. That called a trade deficit, which is considered to be unfavorable. Okay, now let's talk about money. So, of course, when we talk about import and exports, when you have exports, that is money coming into the country. When you have import, that is money going out of the country. So we look at the difference between what's coming in, what's going out, but we also count other money flows factors such as tourism, people that's coming to the United States for tourism, foreign aid that we may give to other countries, military expenditures, and we'll talk in detail a little bit about foreign investment. But here's the goal. The goal is to have more money coming into the country, a favorable balance, than more money going out of the country. Okay? This graph just shows some of the largest exporting nations in the world and the largest U.S. trade partners. All right? So we see that Canada and China are both some of the world's largest exporting nations, and they're also some of the largest U.S. trade partners for the United States of America. Having fun? Learning about global economy? Okay, let's keep it going. We're going to next talk about strategies for reaching global markets. We'll talk about what is licensing, exporting, franchising, contract manufacturing, joint ventures, strategic alliance, and foreign direct investment. So we'll talk about the amount of commitment, control, risk, and profit potential under these different strategies for global markets. But first, I got a question for you. What is the term for a global strategy in which a firm allows a foreign company to produce its product in exchange for a fee? Is the response A, B, C, or D? If you said C, that will be correct. Licensing. Okay? So, licensing is a global strategy in which a firm called the licensor allows a foreign company, the licensee, to produce its product in exchange for a fee known as a royalty. So, what we're saying is that a U.S. based company may allow a foreign company outside the U.S. to produce its product, but use the brand name of that U.S. based company. The U.S. based company, the licensor, would charge a fee called a royalty to the licensee. Now, licensees can benefit because the revenues gained, otherwise you wouldn't have, and pretty much you're not spending any money on that product. You're not making a product. You're allowing someone else to make the product and put your brand name on top of that. So, what it means is that I got some bad news for you. Some of the items that you may be purchasing, although it has a certain brand name to it, it might not have been made by that actual company. Uh-oh. Stay tuned for part 2 of our chapter 3 lecture.